Hi everyone, and welcome to Grammar episode 18. And today we're talking about reflexive pronouns. Let's see what these words are. Now, first of all, I have to remind you how we make a good sentence. We need a subject, somebody who will do the verb. Then we need a verb, an action. And then we need the object part of the sentence, what will be affected by the action. So Peter hits, what does he hit? The ball. So remember this structure as I talk about reflexive pronouns, because reflexive pronouns are used when the object and the subject are the same person or the same thing. Let's have a look at what I mean. Well, first of all, I'll tell you what the singular reflexive pronouns are. I becomes myself, you yourself, he himself, she herself, it itself. Now let's look at the plural form. We becomes ourselves. You, as in more than one person that you're looking at. You becomes yourselves. And they becomes themselves. So don't confuse this you with the previous one, which was singular. This is for more than one person. So you see when we're talking about one person, we say self at the end. And when we're talking about more than one person, like two or more, we say vz, selves. Okay, so remember that pronunciation. Now, let's look at some examples of reflexive pronouns in use. So you can see the subject and the object are the same. So the children fed themselves. It means no other adult was needed to feed them. They ate alone. So the children are sitting there eating. So the children fed themselves. So the subject and the object are the same. They didn't feed the cat, for example. Okay, if they were feeding the cat, it would say the children fed the cat. But no, they're eating alone. They're feeding themselves. I looked at myself in the mirror. So I looked at my own face. So I have a mirror here. And I said, I'm looking at myself. I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at my face. So the subject, which is I, is the same as myself, which is the object. Now let's move on. We don't use reflexive pronouns usually with these words. So pause the video and write them down. Why? Because it's obvious that I'm doing it to myself. For example, if I say, I dress myself, that wouldn't really be needed because who else is going to dress me? If I say I feel sick, it's obvious that I feel sick, not somebody else feels sick. So for example, I can't say I feel myself sick. Doesn't make sense. It sounds too much. So pause the video and write these words down so you don't use reflexive pronouns with these words. Now let's move on. Now I want you to clearly see the difference between the word themselves and each other. So look at the pictures. These two people, this man and this woman, are looking in the mirror. They're looking at their own faces. So they are looking at themselves. But now they've turned around. Look at them. They're looking at each other. So themselves means their own faces, each other, or you can also say one another if you wish. It's the same as each other. So they're looking at one another or they're looking at each other. So you can see very clearly from the picture how that differs from themselves. Now let's move on. We also have phrases like on my own or by myself. And on can be replaced with my, your, etc. and the word own. And by, we can replace the other words with myself, yourself, etc. So pause the video and make a note of these little formulas and I'll give you some examples in just a moment. So on my own, by myself, on your own, by yourself. All of these options are available for you and you can see them clearly in the box. So pause the video, make a note of these. And now let's look at some examples. So here we go. I'm going to give you some examples. I can do it on my own. I can do it by myself. I can also delete the word by and just use myself if I want to. It just gives you more than one option, okay? You can do it on your own. You can do it yourself. Or you can do it by yourself. He can do it on his own. He can do it by himself or himself. So you can choose, okay? Now, one more thing to mention. When we say who someone is or who did something, we can use phrases like a friend of mine, a friend of Deanna's, a friend of yours, a friend of Peter's. So in this box, you see the complete part of a friend of mine, yours, etc. So make a note of this box. And here you will see some very nice examples so you can pause the video and read, okay? So for example, who's that? A friend of mine, one of my many friends. You know, who is she speaking to? A friend of hers, one of her many friends. You know, who is this? Who is that? And you can see it's a friend of Deanna's, it's a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine. So pause the video and have a good look at these examples so you know how to say who did what and who is who. Practice reflective pronouns and good luck!